And the last milestone we're working towards is high availability of window posts. So this is a quite big milestone. We want to build a lot of the common code that we potentially need for other Lotus Miner V2 epics, as we call it, further down the road. But these changes are also quite big, so we will start out and build the needed infrastructure to get to high availability of window post, because it's one of the most needed applications for high availability. And then potentially move to other parts of the system that needs high availability, or moving the scheduler to basically a new database approach. And yeah, I think that's everything from me. If there's any questions, feel free to ask or do it in the chat.
Questions for Orion?
Orion, I've got a quick one. You mentioned the greenfield application requires specialist hardware. What do you have an idea of what that hardware looks like?
Yeah, so this basically applies to pre-commit one part. I guess there will be I think it's scheduled for next week as well. Supranational is going to come and talk over the whole new proof system, but it's basically replacing RAM with NVMe disks. So there will be a lot higher NVMe requirements for the pre-commit one part.
Thanks.
Nathan, you had a question?
Yeah. So I was curious when you had mentioned so we've got the DS Alliance is doing something, it sounds like with some kind of code optimizations, I think if I understood correctly, with the whole sealing process and whatever, but then we've also got the Supranational. So are these going to be able to be kind of bridged together, or are these kind of like A and B? I mean, how do they play together, or what does that whole thing look like?
So it's basically an effort between the DSA and Supranational and partners. So it's not like different proofs. It's basically Supranational has a new proofs optimizations called SuperSeal, but it's a bigger group that has been working on it. So it's basically the same system. And the parts that we can start leveraging in the Lotus Miner right out of the box is basically pre-commit 2 and C2.
All right. Final call for Orion.
Happy to take questions in the chat as well. So
awesome. Thanks, sir. Lots of good stuff. All right. Back to where we were. We wanted to dedicate plenty of time for the FIP that was posted by HITA on Friday afternoon here in the US. And if you do have the GitHub the link to the document. If someone could just quickly drop it into the chat, I'd appreciate it. Mind you, that's both Q&A and the panelist chat as well. So overall, as we summarize the main intent during the immediate discussion this morning, we want to make sure we had consensus on what problem HITA was attempting to solve. And I'm going to do my best to paraphrase. I'm going to call on Scott Conner to help me out. But basically, our understanding from HITA's motivation here was that as the network capacity has been decreasing, there's not an incentive model that comes into play to drive more data being onboarded to the network. And in most other Web3 projects, as mining difficulty or being a player within that ecosystem becomes more challenging, there's more of the profit opportunity increases to compensate. And with Filecoin, that incentive mechanism, due to the introduction of Phil Plus, has been decoupled. So, when HITA posted this discussion, I felt that he was trying to solve the problem. And this was just his view as the most simplistic way you could potentially address that problem. But ultimately, what he wanted, as I speak for him, because I don't see him on this call, is for the problem to be addressed.